faithfully delivering value, interpreting global great books. Hello, this is Sally's Book Club. Today we're exploring the book A Pale View of Hills. This is the debut novel of Kazuo Ishiguro, 2017 Nobel laureate in literature. Though born in Japan, Ishiguro moved to Britain at 6 and received quintessential English education, becoming one of UK's most important contemporary novelists. Alongside Salman Rushdie and V.S. Naipaul, the latter also a Nobel laureate, they form Britain's literary immigrant trio, with Ishiguro showing exceptional early promise. His debut, A Pale View of Hills, caused immediate sensation in British literary circles upon publication. His third novel, The Remains of the Day, won the 1989 Booker Prize, the highest honor in English language fiction. Interestingly, Haruki Murakami greatly admires Ishiguro's works. Murakami once wrote, "There are few authors whose new works I'll immediately buy, even abandoning halfway read books. Ishiguro is among them." Though his name suggests otherwise, Ishiguro spent most of his life in Britain despite being born in Japan. Ishiguro himself acknowledges literary influences from Dostoevsky, Chekhov, and British authors. Originally written in English, A Pale View of Hills explores the nature of memory. Its brilliance lies in how memories are never directly presented, but filtered through protagonist reconstructions. As the story unfolds, the Nobel Committee noted Ishiguro's signature themes of memory, time, and self-deception emerge clearly in this debut work. If you've ever been haunted by the past or started confessions with "I have a friend," this narrative might resonate deeply. A Pale View of Hills weaves two narrative threads about mother-daughter relationships. One narrative thread unfolds in 1980s Britain, featuring middle-aged Japanese immigrant Keiko. Having come to Britain decades earlier, she lives alone in suburban isolation. Her elder daughter, Kiko, from a Japanese marriage, grew up in Japan before their post-war relocation to Britain, a transition she never fully accepted, eventually taking her own life. After 2A2, she immigrated to Britain with Kiko, but never adapted, committing suicide soon after adulthood. Younger daughter Nikki, from Keiko's British marriage, lives in another city. During Nikki's visit, Keiko reminisces about her 1950s life in Nagasaki, Japan. This was before Keiko's pregnancy with her first daughter, living with her Japanese husband in Nagasaki's new residential area. From their home, they could see Mount Inasa, the distant hills referenced in the book's title. This narrative spans just 5 days, focusing on mother-daughter dialogues and Keiko's internal monologue. The second narrative thread reveals Keiko's memories of another mother-daughter pair in 1950s Japan. Keiko befriends Sachiko and her daughter Mariko during her Nagasaki years. They often visited Mount Inasa together during leisure time. The beautiful Sachiko, widowed during 2WE, struggles to raise her 10-year-old daughter alone. Sachiko's new American boyfriend proposes relocating abroad together, a decision hanging in balance. While undecided, they rent a Nagasaki apartment where Sachiko works at a noodle shop. Traumatized Mariko exhibits strange behavior and hallucinations, convinced a woman lives across the river. Sachiko reveals Mariko witnessed a horrific wartime incident, a woman drowning her baby. The woman stood riverbank, fully submerging her infant, while smiling at Mariko. After killing her child, the woman smiled at Mariko across the water, scarring her psyche. Against Mariko's persistent belief, a woman waves at her from across the river. Sachiko remains conflicted about relocation, yearning for American freedom while her daughter resists. Her American boyfriend departed first, promising to bring them over, a plan Mariko detests, calling him "stinky pig." Mariko's only solace comes from her cherished kittens. Despite Mariko's desperate wish to keep her cats, Sachiko drowns them before their departure. When Mariko flees again, Keiko finds her riverside, while Sachiko remains indifferent. "I don't want to go." "Not tomorrow," Mariko stubbornly repeats. Keiko comforts her. "New things can be scary at first, but you'll grow to like it." When met with silence, Keiko adds, "We can return any time if you hate it there. I promise we'll come back immediately if needed. But we must try. Try to see if we like it. With fading hope, I believe we'll like it." The story abruptly ends here. After concluding the Nagasaki tale, Keiko prepares to bid Nikki farewell. She mentions Mount Inasa again, the distant hills from their past. Earlier narrative claimed Keiko rode the cable car with Sachiko's family while pregnant, but now Keiko tells Nikki, "Keiko was so happy that day when we rode the cable car." The shocking truth. Mariko is Keiko's deceased daughter, Keiko, the narrative's key revelation. Traditional novels weave complete narratives for full immersion. A pale view of Hills defies these conventions deliberately. Both mother-daughter stories remain riddled with unanswered questions. Critical mysteries persist. Keiko's suicide reasons, Sachiko's final decision, maternal neglect patterns. Why does Sachiko always disappear during Keiko Mariko interactions? These persistent questions haunt readers throughout the narrative. These apparent plot holes are actually deliberate authorial choices. Ishiguro's design intentionally alerts readers to question the narrator's reliability. In literature, authors and narrators often hold different perspectives. Consider Lu Xun's Kong Yiji, where the tavern boy narrator's views differ from the author's. When the narrator says, "I found him both amusing and irritating," this reflects character perspective, not authorial stance. Unreliable narration often emerges through children, psychologically compromised characters, or those with hidden agendas. This technique appears in works like Rashomon and Life of Pi. Keiko serves as this novel's unreliable narrator, her account diverging from actual events. Example: Mariko's mysterious overnight tree climbing incident strains credibility. Why would a child stay out all night? Sachiko's psychological explanation feels inadequate. The drowning woman's story thinly veils Mariko's desperate protests against relocation. As the story progresses, narrative distortions intensify. Keiko increasingly portrays Mariko as eccentric to justify plot inconsistencies. This constructed reality crumbles with Keiko's slip. Keiko was so happy riding the cable car that day. This accidental truth exposes the story's core. It was always about Keiko's daughter. The entire Sachiko Mariko narrative becomes revealed as Keiko's psychological displacement. Through this narrative mirroring, Keiko processes her maternal guilt indirectly. The final revelation recontextualizes every previous mother-daughter interaction. Ishiguro masterfully demonstrates memory's self-deceiving nature through this narrative architecture. Mariko's resistance to America mirrors Keiko's rejection of Britain. Recall that crucial pre-departure conversation between Keiko and Mariko. "We can return any time if you hate it there," Keiko had promised. "I promise we'll come back immediately if needed." The use of "we" suggests this was actually Keiko's promise to her real daughter Keiko. A maternal assurance. Return to Japan if Britain proved unbearable. Keiko's eventual suicide reveals this promise was broken. Now the full truth emerges. The actual narrative reconstruction. After Keiko's death, the mother confesses to Nikki with crippling guilt about their Japan departure. Young Keiko resisted both stepfather and foreign life, yet was forcibly relocated. Unable to adapt, she descended into depression, culminating in suicide. The fabricated Sachiko story becomes Keiko's psychological shield against maternal guilt. Why does Keiko's memory undergo such distortion? Ishiguro's narrative choice reflects psychological trauma mechanisms. Traumatic memories resist coherent integration, creating narrative fragmentation. The mind rejects unbearable truths through distorted recollection. Ishiguro's social work experience informed this understanding. His homeless shelter work revealed how trauma survivors narrate indirectly. They wouldn't tell their stories straight, too painful to articulate directly. This inspired his literary exploration of defensive storytelling. The novel becomes a meta-comment on memory's self-protective distortions. Through Keiko's narrative camouflage, Ishiguro anonymizes maternal guilt's psychological architecture. Thus, she tells her own story through others' narratives. Ishiguro masterfully employs this narrative technique in his novels. Keiko adopts this fragmented, evasive storytelling approach. For Keiko, these memories aren't voluntary revelations, but traumatic fragments assaulting her consciousness. Each character's unspoken pauses conceal trauma beyond language. Keiko never reveals her pre-Nagasaki wartime horrors. Sachiko vaguely references terrible things in Tokyo but never elaborates. The nature of these experiences remains strictly unspoken. So, neighbor's son lost his fiancée in war and refuses new relationships. These collective traumas merge into Keiko's psychological landscape. Keiko's buried memories erupt after Keiko's suicide, forcing self-deception to maintain sanity. Freud's interpretation of dreams describes how dreams process unbearable stimuli. External stimuli, noises, repressed desires, get transformed in dreams. The mind disguises threats to preserve sleep's fragile reality. Example, loud noises become thunder in dream narratives. This protective mechanism parallels trauma processing. Unbearable traumas get displaced onto symbolic substitutes. The novel applies Freudian displacement to Keiko's memories. The recurring baby drowning woman symbolizes buried guilt, not literal memory, but psychological representation. Keiko subconsciously acknowledges her culpability in her daughter's suicide, yet she can't confront this truth nor bear the crushing guilt it brings. Thus, she fabricates the wartime baby drowning woman to rationalize her daughter's self-destructive behavior. After prolonged reflection, Keiko insists, "My move from Japan was justified, always prioritizing Keiko's welfare." A clear self-deception, this fabricated narrative serves to alleviate maternal guilt over the suicide. Whether Ishiguro intentionally referenced Freudian theory remains unclear, though his psychological insights show remarkable alignment. The novel's brilliance lies in this structural embodiment of psychological complexity. It transcends mere technique, embedding human psyche's intricacies into narrative architecture. As Nobel Committee noted, uncovered the abyss beneath our illusion of connection with the world. How does Ishiguro delineate this abyss? How does he expose the chasm between present consciousness and historical truth? The answer lies in the novel's unique temporal spatial structure, dual timelines. The dominant 1950s Japan narrative emerges through Keiko's nostalgic recollections. This memory-driven narrative brims with melancholic nostalgia. The English nostalgia bifurcates in Chinese. Temporal remembrance, Weitu, versus spatial longing, Paglu. Both dimensions coexist in the novel's fabric. The Chinese title, left angle, double angle, left angle duality. Geographical and temporal captures distances, duality, geographical and temporal. Distant references both physical separation from Mount Inasawa and memory's fragmentation over time. But is Mount Inasawa's trauma truly confined to distant history? The answer resounds through the narrative's psychological architecture. The narrative structure mirrors cinematic scene transitions between 1980s Britain and 1950s Japan. One moment describing Keiko watching girls swing in Britain, next cutting to 1950s Nagasaki's hanged girl imagery. This technique reveals how present British stimuli trigger Keiko's Japanese wartime recollections. Beyond personal triggers, it reflects enduring post-12Y social conditions, enabling Keiko's suicide. Notably, British newspapers reductively attributed Keiko's suicide to Japanese cultural tendencies. Her immigrant status made her perpetual outsider, even in death's analysis. Marginalization permeates through subtle textual details. Keiko's British husband, despite Japan expertise, fundamentally misunderstands his stepdaughter's anguish. He pathologizes Keiko's behavior as inherent Japanese strangeness. Keiko's corpse lay undiscovered for days, ultimate immigrant invisibility. Even acculturated Miki and Kaiko remain perpetual outsiders, Keiko maintains fictional narratives about her deceased daughter to neighbors. Keiko's doing well elsewhere, she tells those who never understood her daughter. Ishiguro crafts Keiko as spectral casualty of historical trauma. War destroyed maternal foundations and childhood stability alike. Forced immigration transformed childhood into unbearable historical burden. The novel becomes archaeological excavation of intergenerational displacement. Through absence, Keiko's ghost critiques post-war migration's human cost. Keiko's perpetual alienation branded her as eccentric, leading to social exile and neglect. Western stereotypes of Japanese suicide culture stem from Ruth Benedict's W.Y. era, The Chrysanthemum and the Sword. This detail reveals stereotypes and social fractures as living legacies, not historical artifacts. Written in 1980s, the novel emerges barely 3 decades post-21, within living memory. War's trauma seems diluted by peace, yet persists through generations. Both mothers yearn to escape Japan's traumatic epicenter. They believe geographical distance could compartmentalize pain into history. Yet, Keiko's ghost haunts sleepless nights, proving past-present inseparability. For trauma survivors, present constantly dialogues with past through dreams and subconscious. Ishiguro rejects national labels, identifying as international writer, choosing Nagasaki setting not for Japanese identity, but universal resonance. The novel exposes global negligence towards ordinary trauma victims. Our era's progressivism needs counterbalance. Those who pause at history's abyss. Like Watchmen, they remind us of forgotten wounds shaping present. Through Keiko's story, Ishiguro maps psychological topography of historical amnesia. The novel concludes, leaving us contemplating memory's fragile architecture. This concludes our exploration of A Pale View of Hills. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.